All right, well, we have two experts to look at this situation. On set is Sultan Barakat, Professor of Public Policy at Hamad bin Khalifa University. But first, let's go to Mohammed Islami. He's a research fellow in Middle East and North Africa Studies at Tehran University. Mohammed, there, the language of threat doesn't usually go down very well with Iran. How do you think it's going to respond to the blockade that now, it seems, is in effect?
Okay, first of all, thank you so much for having me. From the Iranian point of view, I think that there are two directions. The first one, they think that this blockade by the U.S. Army is a kind of political pressure in a joint effort by military forces in order to put pressure on the Iranian negotiators, because right now the Pakistan government is trying to convince two parties to come back to the negotiating table. At the same time, from another direction, they think that this blockade is not good for them in order to sustain their domestic needs in terms of food, medicine, and some other things, more than exporting oil and LPG and something like this. So it seems that Donald Trump is closing the Strait of Hormuz in order to open the Strait of Hormuz. This is a very, very complicated decision by Trump administration. And if the U.S. action for this operation goes in a way to, attacking VLGCs or VLCCs, Iranians from Iranian ports, I think that Iran will respond militarily. I don't know if to the ports or the other tankers, super tankers in the Persian Gulf.
Right, and Sultan Barakat, that is a legitimate concern here in the region, is that we know throughout this war, every time Iran has been attacked by the US or Israel, Iran has carried out these retaliatory attacks like for like. So what is the concern there when it comes to the Gulf region, especially because that Strait of Hormuz there, you have the UAE, for example, and Oman?
Yes, well, if the Iranians see this as blockading their ports and isolating them, then it is likely that they will want to retaliate by blockading and isolating and potentially even attacking Gulf ports. I think probably they have Jabal Ali in mind mostly because of the tense relationship between them and the United Arab Emirates, but also because of the size of the operation there. But I think the real worry now is
that what you're
Jabal Ali Port,
okay.
Yes, in United Arab Emirates. I think for now the real issue is whether this will affect the ceasefire or not. I mean, the talks, as in reaching peace agreement, we now understand that did not reach that stage, but both sides seem to have agreed to continue with a 2-week ceasefire. Now, will the Iranians interpret this as a military move, a violent move against their interest or not? And this can only be judged by the time we see this blockade in operation. So far, there aren't really real signs of how it's going to work. What does it actually mean? Who's going to undertake it? And to what level the Americans are willing to risk the lives of their own soldiers and navy in these narrow waters. I mean, the Iranians can, using very, very basic technology, cause a lot of harm to a very sophisticated naval equipment.
What happens if this blockade is implemented in terms of timelines? Because we are in the middle of a ceasefire right now. Yeah. And is this perhaps the plan in the beginning by Trump that they weren't really serious? Iran has accused them of not being serious to take part in these ceasefire negotiations.
It doesn't help build confidence between the two sides, let's put it this way. You know, the fact that yet again we're talking and you're still planning a move against us won't land well with the Iranians. But I think with the Americans, given that they've come all the way and he kept on building the forces in the region, he must have something to do with these forces. And unfortunately, Trump seems to have trapped himself in a dead end and cannot find a way out. And I must say the Iranians are not helping either, allowing him a way out. Because on the one hand, they say, well, the strait is open, but there is not quite open to all. One day they come back and say, we're going to impose a toll, which of course is not acceptable to a lot of Gulf countries and so on. So they are not helping either, making sure that the Americans are focused on where things matter.
Mohammed Islami, ultimately this seems to be economic pressure by Donald Trump to put on Iran. Trump says Iran won't be able to sell oil, but earlier Iran's ambassador to India said that Iran has oil and is ready to sell to any country that wants it. Meanwhile, oil prices have jumped by 7% just on Monday to over $100 a barrel. What about Iran's relationship with other countries, China, for example, Pakistan, India, all those countries that are heavily relying on Iran? How will it be able to circumvent this?
Iranians think that keeping the global economy and energy market being hostage of the Trump administration cannot take that much long, because right now, even before the ceasefire, even at the time of the ceasefire, the global market, the energy market was and right now is under a very, very huge pressure and ambiguity regarding the future of the market. And you know that talking about the Indian customers, the company Reliance, which is a very, very big company. And the owner of this company is Donald Trump's close friend. They had exemption for buying Iranian oil in the beginning days of the war. So from the Iranian point of view and calculation, they think that Donald Trump cannot impose a real blockade on the Strait of Hormuz, because if he wants to do the same the decision, he should think about expanding the war on China, on India, and also European countries, because right now some European countries are doing back-channel negotiations with the Iranian government in order to solve their problem and paying the money for passing the Strait of Hormuz. Also, I should name Japan. The Japan Prime Minister recently was Donald Trump's. In Washington D.C., she met Donald Trump. So the Iranians think that the time is not helping Donald Trump, and this is how they think.
Okay, and Sultan, we've been seeing a trickle of ships that are going in and out during the war because Iran is allowing some of these ships. But this now, with this US blockade, it seems will effectively completely block the strait. Does this set a worrying precedent here when it comes to countries just being able to take over a waterway and decide what it does with it, even though there should be free passage?
Well, the Hormuz Strait is I think, a special case because of the territorial waters of Iran and Oman that are really overlapping. So there is no international waters in between, but there is a customary understanding that ships should pass. But at the same time, the U.S. has a history of this. I mean, they blockaded Cuba for such a long time, Venezuela more recently, and so on. If you have the power and the ability to do it, you feel you could do it. Now, is it illegal? I doubt it. Even in times of war, the U.S. has not declared war on Iran. They still see this as a special operation. So there is no real official status of war between the two countries. So, and they tried, and some of their allies tried to help them by taking the issue to the Security Council a few days ago in the hope that some language will pass that would allow this to be dressed in some form of legality. But that failed as well. The real issue, I think, it's going to put the United States in direct confrontation and tension with China. And we don't know whether this is part of calculations of Trump or is it going to be a byproduct. I suspect that it is part of his calculation for the bigger picture. He's determined to make sure that Europe is dependent on American oil and gas, and that is pretty much is the case today. He's determined to make sure that the Chinese, they do get their oil, but they get it at the international price and in dollars. And I don't think he has much, he doesn't give really much thinking to us in the Gulf here. And this is really dangerous because although we provide 20% of the world's oil, the world is not going to wait for us to resupply them. They're looking elsewhere. So we could easily find ourselves in a few weeks' time with no customers, particularly I think maybe the LNG and some of the more sophisticated products that we export from here. If people find supplies elsewhere, we're going to end up with the Iranians fighting over a fishing lake. I mean, this is no good to anyone. As far as our own development is concerned.
All right, I'd like to thank both of you. Mohammed Islami, Research Fellow in Middle East and North Africa Studies at Tehran University, joining us from the Iranian capital, and of course, Sultan Barakat, a Professor at Public Policy at Hamad bin Khalifa University here in Doha.